And by the way, please join in. Let us make this a conversation. Interrupt
Okay.
me.
Sure.
I would happily do so.
Okay? And we can find something to talk about. Has the video started on your end? Do you
Yes,
see
it
any?
says
Yeah, okay.
Dhammarato Happy Skyper
Yes.
is recording the call.
All right. So we, today, nobody has a question, and that's a good thing. You see, questions have to do with doubt and confusion. And when we don't have any particular questions, that's a really good thing, especially when we're practicing, because the doubt is a hindrance that comes up. Uh, am I doing it right? What about this? What about that? And when we don't have any questions, what that means is that we can go ahead and practice easily. That we don't really have any worries or any frustrations on our mind or any issues. We can just sit and be happy. Now, one of the things that's very interesting about that, going back to something that the Buddha said, in fact, Alex, you just posted this on Skype not long ago about the Dhamma, the Buddha says, is profound. It's difficult to understand. It's hard to comprehend. And what that really means is that it is so radical from ordinary life that it's confusing, because what about this and what about that I've always listened to and heard about. And in fact, this is part of the reason why the Vipassana and Goenka and the Mahasi method is so popular in the West is because it fits into what people normally believe.
Yeah.
And if we would stay in that, then we wind up practicing Buddhism in an ordinary way, getting some benefits here and there, getting a high spot, getting something that we can go tell our friends about, etc.
Samsara
Uh,
light.
yes, but it's still samsara, but it's, well, actually, it's samsara light from time to time when we
Yes.
get those highs, but the whole quality within the context of the Mahasi, using the 16 stages of insight, is that when we keep um, looking at the dukkha, seeing the dukkha, down deep inside, we begin to get the idea that there's really nothing there, that it's just a bunch of cloud formations with no rain. And that the mind just gets cloudy and all kinds of stuff, and the thoughts come and the thoughts go, and they bubble up and they pop and all kinds of stuff. And so, in this practice of just noting and just noting and just noting, the noting begins to get, let us say, in a way, kind of boring, because there's nothing really left to note. And that's the tunnel then that the students crawl down into when they begin to see everything dissolves and falls apart, and there's nothing really there worth noting. But they're still caught in the ordinary mentality and the ordinary reality. They don't like that. They want something there to be there with their thoughts. They want their thoughts to be meaningful, and they're not.
Yes. How disappointing.
It becomes disappointing. So the students will get disappointed in that kind of practice. But somehow or another, they've got to keep doing it. They're in the habit of doing it. They're motivated to do it because life sucks anyway. And
Yes.
so they get into this, and so they go from that boredom into disappointment, and then down into great fear, misery,
Misery.
anguish, disgust, that some
Mhm.
Vipassana teachers then has labeled as a dark night of the soul. And I would
Yes.
like to take a moment to talk about that the dark night of the soul that was the original that came from St. John of the Cross and also is experienced quite commonly in Christianity is a dark night when they have thrown all of their life
Yeah.
into the myth of Christianity.
Yes.
And they talk to Jesus and they expect Jesus to talk back to them.
Yes.
And if they're sane, he doesn't talk to them. And if they're insane and need to be in an insane asylum, Jesus does talk to them, or worse still, they think they are Jesus.
Yes. Yes. I think
But
in the what you're talking about with Saint John of the Cross, he described his journey as nothing, nothing, nothing,
nothing,
nothing, and at the highest level, the ultimate nothing.
ultimately nothing. And that was for him disappointing because he wanted something to be there, some
Right.
God, some Sky Daddy, some Jesus, some ultimate Savior to give
Yeah.
him paradise. And there's
Mm.
nothing there. The same thing happened with Sister Teresa, Mother Teresa,
Yes.
when Jesus wouldn't talk back to her. And she assumed that all of these priests all over the world were praying, "Oh, dear Jesus, give me this coin and that girl," and all this kind of stuff, and that Jesus would come back and talk to them. But
Mhm.
Sister Teresa was sane enough to recognize there ain't no Jesus talking back.
Yeah.
He's not
Mhm.
there. And
Yeah.
so she went into a kind of a dark night of the soul herself, which put her out of it. I mean, she was really doing some great stuff in Calcutta, helping the poor.
Mhm.
But when she got funds and money and no Jesus,
Yeah.
she put all of that money into building a convent and telling all of those suffering people in Calcutta, "Oh, well, it's good that you suffer. That
Right.
brings you closer to God." And so here she is, really, really suffering, trying to
Yeah.
get close to God. So this is what happens with the Christianity, but that's not really what's happening in Buddhism for several reasons. And one of it is that in Christianity, the only people that you can go to believe in the same myth that you believe. And
Yeah.
and the best you could do is talk them into going into their own dark night of the soul, or maybe they're already in it, and so that's the only thing that the priest can do with these nuns is
All they'll do
commiserate
is
with
chase
them.
you away. Get out of here, you. Get out of here, you.
But with the
Mhm.
context of Buddhism, especially if you've got a good teacher, he's going to help you get out of that state. That in fact there was no reason for you to have gone into it from the first place. And so it's actually built right into that 16 stages of insight. It's very beautiful there when it says that after they go through the misery, the stress, and the anguish, they go into a strong desire to get out of this.
Mhm.
All right. Now, I would assume that anybody and everybody who calls me by listening to the videos or doing whatever and contacting me, that's because they already want something. They already have a desire to get out of the mess that they're in. But it's nothing compared to this dark night of the soul kind of stuff where we get really, really desperate because all of this Buddhist practice that they've been doing don't work any more than praying to Jesus don't work. But then the change comes is when the meditator will make a change, and that change that comes from the strong desire to get out of it into actually doing something about it. To redouble their effort is, in fact, the way that it's talked. But it's not so much of redoubling the effort, it's starting to put the effort into the right place. And I find it interesting to the point of amusing, right out loud, laughing, amusing, that once they start with the right noble effort, there they go with the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path. That's so funny that this Mahasi method that is based on the Visuddhimagga and also older literature from the Panciti, I've forgotten the name of the old
Or the
book I read.
yes, the other one.
Yeah,
The other commentary.
Padisambhidibhagga, I think is the name of
Yes.
it,
Hmm.
from the 3rd century AD. So that's the root of this whole method of only practicing part of the Eightfold Noble Path rather than practicing the whole path. But
Yes.
they add on their own, even though they're not told to, they know that they've got to make a change.
Mhm.
They figure that out, even though that it's never taught to them in the literature that they're reading or the teachers that they have. They really have, they figure out, I've got to do something about this. This is my job now. And that I have seen several students going through that. I saw you go through that, Alex.
Yes.
And that Robert Cohen, I remember when and the circumstances was, and he
Yes.
came up with, we don't need another guru. I mean, he's singing Tina Turner's song. We don't need another
Yes.
hero. We don't need another one. We've got to do this ourselves. I'm my own guru now. I'm going to have to do it myself. And
Yes.
now we find Pedro doing exactly the same thing. He has finally got to the point that he's got to get out of relying upon other people. I mean, he was raised that way. His dad was really hard on him. And so he became dependent in the sense that he didn't want to make a decision because any decision he would make, his dad or some member of the family would disagree with him. And so he became emotionally dependent. And
Yes.
what he was doing about it was wind up going to the psychiatrist and getting pills and going to groups, self-help groups, and all of this kind of stuff. And finally, after talking with me and doing the correct practice, he began to realize that he was very, very dependent upon other people. And that was the source of the misery in his life, that he's got to do it himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But this is built right into the Eightfold Noble Path. We could have read it on day one and gotten it, at least intellectually, but now we have to get it at a pretty deep level. Is that I cannot rely upon anyway. There is no plastic Jesus to put on the dashboard of my truck. There is no Sky Daddy that's going to help me. And my
Right.
real daddy is going to fuss at me for even asking him questions. And so we wind up having to recognize doing it ourselves.
Yes.
And this is then back down to that source of why we come to the point of having no more questions is because the only people that we can ask questions to are the plastic Jesuses, the sky daddies, the psychiatrists, the gurus, the meditation teachers, and all of them people who don't really have the right answers. That we really have to do it ourselves. But the Buddha does give us a method for doing it ourselves. That's the real difference is, and that's why, in fact, um, the teaching of the Buddha is so profound, so difficult to understand, is partly because of this one issue: is you ain't gonna get no answers. No matter how many questions you ask, you don't get any answers. What you get is maybe the enthusiasm to start doing it for yourself. And that's where the big change is made from this investigation of the dukkha into just throwing it out. And there's several ways of doing that. One of the ways of throwing the dukkha out is by diversion. In fact, this is the method that the Buddha would teach. Um, in the sense that if we've got it on our mind, we've got an argument that we've had with someone, and I use the traditional granny or Aunt Susie or somebody who is arguing with us, and for most people, it's probably daddy, especially the younger guys. And that we get into these arguments with people, and then we keep those arguments on our mind for several reasons. One is that we feel dissatisfied with them and we want it to come to some resolution, which winds up almost always as wanting revenge. I want to win that argument. I'm tired of Aunt Susie arguing and winning these arguments, telling me what to do. You know, the ultimate answer to an argument is taking power and control over the person and making them believe what I'm saying rather than allowing them to see it for themselves. And so arguments never work. Really, my favorite on that is that this was years ago. In fact, I've seen on YouTube that Christopher Hitchens is coming back now. They've got these shorts that are putting on Christopher Hitchens. And the Christians would never believe anything he said, nor old Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris, all of that crowd would get into these big, long debates with Christians. And they would have two different settings. One of the settings would be at a church. The other settings would be at a hall at a university. And you could tell by the setting of how the argument is going to go.
Yeah.
That when it's in church, most of the people in the audience are Christians, and they're always going to take the side of the preacher. Doesn't matter what kind of brilliance that Christopher Hitchens can come up with. And then they go to the university hall, and that's going to be filled with university students, that it doesn't matter what the preacher says. They're not going to believe him. And so in these discussions, nobody changes their mind. Nobody changes their opinion. They've even done some of them with a before and an after. They've got these little buttons on the chairs, and they press, I'm this or I'm that, and then at the end of it, I've changed. Nobody changes. And the reason that they don't change is because they already had the argument fixed in their mind beforehand. That when people get into arguments, nobody wins.
Yeah.
So we burn those arguments in our brain. We think about it, we mull it over, and we want a resolution. And the answer to that is, let's not try to come to a resolution. Let's just change the topic. Let's go off someplace else. Let's go find something that's agreeable, a diversion. And so the easy way then is to just think of something else. Throw Aunt Susie out of the mind. Come back to what we know is wholesome. What is wholesome then? Well, many students ask this, what is wholesome and what is not wholesome? Well, there are some kind of thoughts that are absolutely downright unwholesome, and we know it. Thoughts of revenge, thoughts of getting even, thoughts of weapons, thoughts of daggers, thoughts of going out and getting drunk, thoughts of beating the wife, thoughts of all kinds of stuff like this. And then there are absolutely wholesome thoughts that we know are wholesome, but there are very few of those. And then there's a wide gap in between that sometimes actually what we say could be wholesome, and say it again, and it's unwholesome. So we can start with what's actually wholesome. What can we say that's wholesome? Everything is all right. Wow, this is good. This is nice. Or we can go right down to it and make sure that when we're alone, we're secure and safe. When we're out with other people, we're always in danger of offending them or disagreeing with them, starting arguments, them giving us work to do, all kinds of possible disagreements. But when we're alone, in reality, we're safe. And I would recommend that people find a safe place. Now, the Buddha says go to the forest, go to a foot of a tree, go to an empty hut, go to a pile of straw, and sit down and bring mindfulness to the fore, is the way that is stated in the suttas. And what mindfulness to the fore means is pay attention to what's happening right now. Bring your remembrance into the present moment, right here in front of you. This is what we mean by bringing it to the fore, is we pay attention to what's happening right now, which is in and of itself quite a diversion from thinking about the argument that we had with Aunt Susie yesterday.
Yeah.
And so we divert from the fantasy or from the desires or from the unreality, the myth, the magical stories of a religion, and we divert into actual reality. This is actually what's happening. And what is happening right now? I'm actually safe. I'm actually secure. In this present moment, sitting on the porch or sitting in the room, the actuality is that it's not dangerous. That's real. The body is safe. And because the body is safe, if we start paying attention to it, that would be a really wholesome thought to have, is that, oh, I'm actually safe right now. Wow, nothing to worry about. I'm actually safe, secure, comfortable right now. So, I'm getting some messages, by the way, from Cathal. He's on the minibus on his way to the visa. And that if we can practice, I feel safe, I feel secure, and the body is actually safe and secure. I mean, if you're standing out in the middle of the highway dodging traffic, it's not going to be a good thing for you to say, oh, I feel safe and secure out here. Or going on your motorcycle at 100 miles an hour. That's not a good way to say I'm safe and secure. You have to actually get safe and secure. And when you are safe and secure, now let's pay attention to, I'm safe. I'm secure. I mean, think about that, guys. Take a deep breath and recognize that you're okay right now. You're safe. No problems, no worries. Everything is okay. Any problems that come up to mind now, let's just divert those away. Let's find a time and a place to where we can actually feel safe and comfortable. Sort of in a middle path kind of way. We will deal with dangers later. But mostly what happens is that people are dealing with dangers when there's no danger. We're feeling insecure when the reality is that we are secure. And so let's find that middle path of when there really is no danger. Let's not have thoughts of danger. Let's have thoughts of safe and secure and comfortable. And with this thought of safe, secure, and comfortable, we can begin to talk about and think to ourselves and actually begin to feel satisfied that actually everything is okay. Everything is fine. Everything is going to be all right. Everything is going to work out just fine. Now, this is a way of diverting ourselves. But then there's another way, and that is the issue that the Buddha talks about of anatta, or no self. All right? And how do we do that? Oh, that argument that I'm thinking about with Aunt Susie, she's not here now. She is not mine. Not me, not mine. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa says, there is nothing that is worth clinging to as I, me, or mine. Now, what he's meaning there is, in fact, that there are some things that are wholesome that are worth attaching to, like this present moment. attaching to the feeling of safe and secure and comfortable and satisfied. These are the things that we do want to attach to, but attaching to things as self is really, really dangerous, and we feel that danger right here and right now. An example would be if you have fondness for a particular political party or a particular country. If you start thinking about how wonderful this country is, the next thing you're going to start thinking about is how dangerous this country is. If you start thinking about how marvelous the Democrats are, the Democratic Party, you'll very, very soon start thinking about the enemies of the Democratic Party and start to feeling bad. And so if the Democrats do good today, you go up, and they do bad today, you go down. Why? Because we identify with it. So the idea is to stop identifying with all of these thoughts. I am not that email that needs to be written to the boss. I'll do it later. It's not important right now. What's important is safe, secure, comfortable, satisfied. And with that, there are no doubts. There are no questions. That if we've got an argument on our mind with Aunt Susie, we got a lot of questions. What's going to work? How can I get her? What am I going to do? How am I going to respond when she says this thing next time? You know, trying to work out all of our answers and whatnot so that we can win the argument. And guess what? Right then and there, we're not winners. Right then and there, we are losers, full of doubt, full of concerns, full of dangers. Now, this whole point, going back to that issue of the Buddha saying that this is profound, this is hard to grasp, this is not for the ordinary people, because the ordinary people can only feel safe and secure once all of the problems are solved, except that they don't recognize that their own mind is the problem machine. You could go to say so far to say that the human mind is a problem-solving mechanism. And so the biggest problem that someone can ever have is to have no problems. Because it's a problem-solving machine and I got no problems. Oh, I'd better go get one. And so we dream up problems. We think up of something so that we could worry about it. And the real beautiful part of the actual teaching of the Buddha is that we can change that habit, that the human mind is not actually a problem-solving machine down into the DNA, that problem-solving machine was developed. It was developed in childhood, the way that the parents treat the children, going to school, dealing with other kids who have already learned to have problems. They give you their problems, etc., like that. And so we wind up all through school, all through university, thinking that we are a problem-solving machine. That in fact, we go to an interview, to a job, trying to prove to the interviewer what a good problem-solving machine I am.
Yeah, and a lot of that.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of that also comes from having goals or wanting to meet certain goals given to us or that we take on.
Goal setting is problem setting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why the teaching of the Buddha is so profound. It's revolutionary. To stop and recognize that right now I don't have any problems. And the next moment, any problems that I have, I had to make up, I had to remember. And then the next moment after that, any problems and things like that, I remember or I make it up. And when I remember it, it's because I remember making it up in the first place.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
And we stay busy and unhappy.
And heat it up.
And all because it's mine. It's my problem. It's my political party. It's my country. That's kind of funny. There's a song that we used to sing, or not, we played it in the band, and the people would sing along. This is my country. Have you ever heard that song?
I don't think so.
Land that I love, etc. Okay, so the point is that if it's mine, then that means that everybody else in the band, they don't have one because it's mine, and we all tend to have that idea. That's why we begin to argue with each other over who it belongs to anyway. And the answer
Mhm.
really is it don't belong to anybody if we would just put that idea down.
Yeah,
It's
it's so
not
nice there.
mine.
Then things become cool.
Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
Things become cool. Let's talk about that in just a moment.
Yeah.
So let's finish off
Mhm.
with this point about if we can stop owning things, thinking about things in the sense of my job, my problems. If I don't do it, nobody will. And just have it, oh, it's okay, it'll wait. No problem. This is the second way of diverting from just changing the subject into actually the investigation of this is causing me dangers and problems because I try to own it. And the reality is that it doesn't belong to me. It's not mine. But in fact, I have a little story that I was a student that I had years ago. And we came up with the phrase NMB, not my business. Not my business. Oh, well, we need groceries in the house. That's not my business. Oh, the dishes need to be done. That's not my business. I can wash the dishes, but I can wash the dishes without that mentality that these are my dishes and I have to wash them and I don't like it, but I got to wash them
And look at all
because
those people not washing dishes.
yeah.
Oh, those
Oh, those
bastards with their
terrible
not
people, they
washing
don't
dishes.
they don't wash my dishes, so I got to do it, okay? So, if we can come to the point of understanding that we don't really own anything. We don't own the body,
Mm-mm.
and yet our whole society teaches us that this is your body. You've got to train this body. Jesus made the statement that you can't change your stature even 1 inch.
No.
But I like it better is that you can't control your age.
Yeah.
Young people want to be older. Middle-aged people want to be younger. Old people really want to be younger. And they don't accept the fact that they don't own that body. That body is going to age according to its own conditions.
Mhm.
But women, especially, were, oh, I've got to be a beautiful body. If my body is beautiful, then I am beautiful. And hence you have the entire industry makeup, fashion,
Surgery.
hairdoing, exercise, all of this kind of stuff is based upon my body. Now, Kat was mentioning that things have changed for the men in the sense that in the when I was growing up, it was all macho, macho, macho man. Everybody wants to be a macho man. You got to be tough. But I think that that's been changing in the sense that the guys now are wanting to be beautiful like the women.
Yeah.
That the muscle building is supposed to be not done because you want to be strong and tough, it's because you want it to be beautiful. But it's still, in both cases, my body.
Mm.
And the clothes that we wear is determined around what I look like, mine.
Mhm.
So if it's that fundamental, you can recognize how easy it is for us to attach to all kinds of stuff. My car, my motorcycle, my house, my books, my hard drives, all of that stuff is mine. And what we can begin to practice in our anapanasati is, guess what? It ain't mine. wow, what a relief. It's not mine.
Never
I don't
was.
have to worry about it. It's not
Right?
mine. Okay.
Yeah.
So, one of the ways that we can look at this is to recognize that this is a lot of friction, a lot of rubbing. We rub that thing, the body or whatever, against me and mine, me and mine, and we rub and we worry and we contort, and all of that rubbing causes friction, and all of that friction causes heat, wear, and tear. The example would be the car going down the street. When it's sitting and you start it up, you can feel the tires are cool. But if you drive it for a while, drive it to work and get out, you touch those tires, they're hot. All right. The same thing is true with the mind. If you go driving that thing down the road, the mind, your tires are going to get hot. And this is what life is really about. How can we learn to cool off is by not having any of these frictions. The friction of having an argument with Aunt Susie, the friction of got to go talk to the boss, the friction of, oh, I got to go get this fixed or that or whatever like that. Oh, I've got to go wash the dishes and I don't like it. So basically, one of the places that we find friction is within the mind of we've got a way of supposed to do things. Our lives are full of rules and the way things. We've got ideals, we've got goals, we've got problems to solve, and all of that is the Buddha talks about it in the sense of the Pali word is sila bhatta paramasa, and that the sila bhatta paramasa means that we actually own and attach to a set of rules about the way that things are supposed to be done. Standards, for instance. We have standards, Okay. One of the standards would be, oh, you're supposed to wear a shirt when you're doing videos. And over time, I've heard a lot, especially women. They even sexualize the fact that here it is, it's in the tropics, and I don't need a shirt. I'm fine without a shirt. But because of their rules, oh, thou shalt wear clothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt wear clothing is one of the rules that we have. And I mean, you follow that rule without even thinking about it. That when you put on clothes, I'm very, very sure that when I'm putting on clothing, there's a reason for putting that clothing on. The sarong or the pants that I'm wearing is because the people in the house are going to give me grief.
Yes.
But if I have to go to the bank for some reason, then Tam tells me, you got to wear a shirt. Okay, so I'll put on a shirt to make her happy. I'm okay to go to the bank. I would go anywhere stripped naked. That in fact, I would fit in quite easily in India where they have the naked
The
aesthetic.
naked sages.
Yeah, the naked sages. Why bother wearing clothing?
It's true.
Then in fact you get stinky and smell bad because you're wearing clothes. If you don't wear any clothes, then everything evaporates off and you got no problem, no worries.
No more problem. It's
But
like it
you've
was
got a
meant to be that
rule.
way or something, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was
You've got
made
a
like that.
rule. You've got to wear clothes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've followed that rule without even thinking about it. We just automatically do it. Even to the point of you got to wear underwear.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are several places intentionally that thou shalt not wear underwear. One example is the kilt. That in fact, in the Scottish military, that they've got all those kilts and shiny boots, and one of the things that the officer does is he'll look at the shiny boots to see if he can see testicles. Because you're not supposed to wear underwear. In the time of the Buddha, nobody wore underwear, and so it's just not part of the robe and gear that the monks have. But in our society, our parents from a young age teach us, thou shalt wear underwear.
Mhm.
And in fact, whether you're wearing briefs or jockey shorts or boxers or whatever they are, they bind, they hurt, they're disadvantaged. And yet you wear them because you're supposed to. You're
Mhm.
supposed to wear underwear. Okay. And all of these rules then cause friction because we don't like all of these rules. Oh, you should lose weight. Oh, yeah, I should lose weight. And then the refrigerator door opens and I should lose weight. Hell with that. And so this is where all of the friction comes from, is that we rebel against all of these rules. And the Buddha says, just set the rules down. Let's have a new rule. Just one rule. And that is, let's not get hot.
Mhm.
The
Just
dukkha,
watch the mind.
right. That's what the Buddha teaches is dukkha, dukkha nirodha.
Mhm.
Dukkha is hot. It's unsatisfying. And nibbana is cool.
Mhm.
This is what now in the Western magical Buddhist tradition, they place nibbana way up there, way high up there. They don't recognize that it's actually a process of cooling off. That if you don't drive that truck, the tires don't get hot. If you don't worry, your mind doesn't get hot. If you don't spin the mind, it's not going to get warmed up. One point that I'll say about automobiles is that if you've got a hot rod, that's what we call them, a race car, um, and that you do wheelies, you spin the tires around, you race it really fast, what happens to that car? Doesn't it get old really quickly? Doesn't it get hot and things wear out really fast? That the little old lady who drives her Studebaker at 30 miles an hour wherever she goes will keep that thing for 50 years. I had a grandmother that was like that. In fact, it was a 1949 Hudson, I think, that had fluid drive. And she
Wow.
died owning that car
Wow.
in the 1970s, and she bought it in the 1940s, right? So monks actually are known in Thailand to live to be old. Why? Because they don't burn themselves out. Company executives will often have a heart attack, right? In fact, Donald Trump looks like he's getting old fast.
He likes to cover that up.
Right. Which means that he loves himself so much that he makes makeup, he does his hair, he makes plastics, he had plastic surgery, all of that kind of stuff to try to keep up the appearances because he loves the way that he looks and he loves all of this stuff. But he winds up having a pretty hot life, especially right now,
Yeah.
because of all of the attachments. So, what we can do with our practice is cool off, go in the direction of nibbana. Now, nibbana is relative, just like all temperatures. You know, we have the Kelvin scale that goes to zero. Very rarely, or actually in modern times, they work trying to get down to zero, and they can't do it. That in outer space there is radiation and there's all kinds of stuff. They keep things at about 3 or 4 degrees Kelvin. But if you go out into the snow and it's zero, that's cold. But minus 40 is really cold. All right. The same thing is hot. We don't like it when it's over 100, 120, but boiling water, that's only 212. Or in Celsius, it's 100. But that's nothing compared to the melting temperature of iron. But iron, the melting temperature of iron, is pretty cool compared to the surface of the sun. And so there's a wide, wide range. And where do we find our comfort? Is in the middle. The comfort range is in the middle, right? The Buddha's all about the middle path. Let's stay out of the extremes. And so a comfortable room temperature is comfortable. We don't have to get really cold. And so this idea of nibbana is also a middle path. We don't have to go to absolute zero to have nibbana, the way that most people are thinking. They think that nibbana is an extreme, to where, in fact, nibbana is a comfortable middle path, to be cool, to just cool off, to settle down. You don't have to go stone cold dead, just cool. And so this is the where that we're looking for nibbana. We're looking at a middle path to cool off, stop the friction, go for it in the sense of, it's not mine. I don't own it. I don't have to rub up against it. I don't have to follow it around when it goes up and down. I can just let it be. I don't care who's president of the United States. In fact, I made a statement one time on one of the videos, and somebody wrote a comment about how much he appreciated that when I said that humanity has never had a good government. We don't even know what it is. We just go from one bad government to another bad government. Do we care whether Biden or Trump is in office? No. They don't affect me. They're not mine. But look how many people, how many millions of people worry and fret and care and spin their wheels, all trying to figure out what's the best form of government, and they don't even know what a good government is. In fact, possibly a good government would be one where so that everybody in the society is so comfortable and so happy they don't even bother to vote. They don't care about what the government does. Why? Because the government is not in their face. But the U.S. government seems to be in everybody's face, nonstop, all the time. And they're rubbing up against it. My this and my that, my politician, my savings account, my taxes, my salary, all of that kind of stuff. Everybody's really worried about it. If we can get that out of our mind, we can cool off. The government don't belong to me. I couldn't fix it if I wanted to. Couldn't fix it at all. There's no reason to worry about it. And so this is when we can cool off about things and just find an easy place to live. This is the state of nibbana. It's not an extreme. The same thing is true about enlightenment. Enlightenment is not an extreme. It's a balance point. It's an easygoing place. And if we can
One
be
could
easy,
say it's very ordinary.
It's very ordinary, exactly.
Very ordinary.
I used to contemplate that many years ago about enlightenment. What happens when somebody's enlightened for 4, 5, 10 years? Doesn't enlightenment get kind of ordinary for them? They got used to being enlightened. And yet all the Western Buddhism has enlightenment way out there.
Yeah.
Nibbana is
Right.
way out there,
Yeah.
some sort of an extreme. Because our religions teach about extremes.
Yeah.
One of the extremes that, in fact, this is let us say a founding principle of Christianity is original sin. You're broken. You're no good. You cannot save yourself. Only Jesus can save you. And that's where the idea of the dark night of the soul comes from. It's called Jesus didn't do his job. He ain't doing it. He's been dead for 2,000 years, or we can't even find where he's buried to dig him up and get him back active again. He ain't doing it. And this is where it comes back to that issue of, in the beginning of the talk, we were talking about We have to do our own changes. And the change that we're making is stop being hot and start being cool. To stop being worried and full of doubt and having a lot of questions and looking for a savior. Let's just recognize we don't need a savior. We're already okay. And so all of this stuff ties in together, and it makes not just a lot of sense, but in practice, it is so nice. It is so wonderful just to recognize deep in one's understanding, this is okay. No problems. Yeah, the body's going to get old, it's going to sicken, it's going to die. Yeah, let's have fun with that.
Excellent.
Yes. Yes. Let's have fun with that.
Because that's what's happening.
Yeah. And I think this is why it's so important. It was something that was so revolutionary for me in particular, was to recognize that when we look at like a practice like we talked about earlier in our talk, when we talk about, Vipassana is what we keep calling it over here, Vipassana meditation, insight meditation. And we look at it, it's missing its own, and its instruction is not missing in the sutta. The Buddha tells us we need to come out of the hindrances and then look, because if we just keep looking at it from the same perspective, it's like you say, it's just the same thing. Oof, 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 same thing.
Right.
But if we can come out of the hindrances, that in and of itself is an accomplishment,
Absolutely. How many vipassanas do we have to have? How many insights do we have to have until we have the insight, I've got to make a change here?
Yeah, right. How many
That's
times?
the insight that it's my job to make a change, and the time to do it is right now.
Right.
Or if you're British, right bloody now.
Right. Right.
And that's the insight that needs to be done. And people will practice a meditation for years and years and years, having one insight after another about how there are, my joke, that the guy went to the psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And they did the archaeology, the psychological archaeology, and dug down to the fact that he got a really bad spanking when he was 4 years old. And that's why he's an asshole now. And and that's as far as they went. And he says, okay, I understand I'm an asshole because I got a whipping when I was a little kid. But they didn't go down to the point that Mommy gave him the spanking because he was already an asshole.
Right.
And so all of that digging doesn't help because we make decisions about it, but it's always I, me, and mine, my spanking.
Yep. Absolutely.
And what it has done to me, rather than having the insight of, oh, I can change.
Right now.
I can change.
I don't even need to know. I don't even need to know where the spanking came from.
I don't know. We don't need to know.
It's just old news.
It's just, and all we need to do really is to have that vipassana, that insight into my choice. I can make the choice. I don't need a daddy. I don't need a sky daddy. I don't need a Jesus. I don't need a vipassana teacher. I don't need a guru. I don't need a fat old ex-monk on the video. I don't need anything other than making the choices that I want to make so that I can choose to feel the way I want to feel rather than choosing or have to put up with the feelings that I'm in the habit of already having developed.
Yes. And I'd go so far as to say that if you really see this once, maybe, you're onto something, and you're going on a great direction. And if you see that every single time, oh, wow. It's like we talk about often. Beautiful music. Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Often.
Even better, often. Yeah, because who cares about every single time, huh?
Right? That's an
Doesn't
extreme.
even need to happen.
Let's just do it
Just
often.
That's so cool.
This is why the 7 factors of enlightenment, or the 7
Mhm.
factors of awakening, are not talking about it like that. They use the term unremitting, and we can use that word unremitting into often.
Yeah.
Just often come back.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get up to really hot. Get just a little bit hot, and then remember, and then come back and be cool again.
You can see it. Okay. I love it.
We don't have to get worked up. We could just be cool, because we can remember when it's hot to touch, turn the heat off.
Yep.
Come back, settle down, no place to go, nothing to do. And life can be really easy. It's marvelous, in fact. It's an enjoyable thing. We do actually live in a paradise.
Absolutely.
Just very few people know that. And why do we live in a paradise? It's because it's your choice.
Yep.
You made your hell. You can change it.
Yes, sir.
Which brings out another old joke. There's standing on the street corner or bar or someplace. It wasn't in a bar for sure. Standing on the street corner, the atheist and the Christian are having a great big argument about hell. And the atheist, being a Southern boy, he comes up with, "There ain't no hell." And the Christian says, "The hell there ain't." And just as that happened, a Buddhist walked by and made the flipping comment of, "Hell, you're both in it right now."
Yep.
Hell, you're both in it.
You don't need to believe in it.
You don't need to believe in it. You're creating it right now. You're arguing with someone, and you're both in hell.
Yeah.
And so the hell that they're arguing over is a concept.
Yeah.
But the hell of the reality of it is that they're hot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we can just avoid such arguments by seeing, hey, that's a bunch of hell there. Let's stay away from it. Let's just drop that. That's not mine. Let me go someplace else and just have fun.
Just cool.
Just cool off.
Mm-hmm.
So, Michael, do you have anything to say?
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Dhammarato, and thank you, Alex, for joining as well.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I've been having a blast.
Yeah.
I know. I really enjoy. I like the Dhamma.
I suppose one thing that came up for me is we were talking about room temperature earlier, and I was thinking for different people, room temperature means different things. So one person's coolness may be another person's hotness.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess that's why it's so important for us to look for ourselves too, huh?
Yeah.
Right,
That's so
exactly. I was
wonderful to
about to
think of
mention
that
that. Right.
Yeah.
It's not his hot, it's yours.
Yeah.
You have to figure out for yourself, because you're not going to get any help. The more help you want, the more likely you're going to fall into some dark place, because you're not going to get any help.
I like that, Dhammarato, you told me one time about how to get out of quicksand.
Mm-hmm.
You remember talking about that? Yeah, just like that. Just lay back. Just let it be what it is. Just let it. Or one of the biggest ones that I loved the most, when I first started talking with you, you had told me that when you're in the road and there's a truck coming at you, you should get out of the way of the truck.
Yeah, you just get out of the way. You don't have to ignore it or stop it. You
Right,
can
or just
get out of its way.
Out of the way. Just do the normal, reasonable thing.
Which is the diversion that we're talking about. Let's just start having some happy thoughts.
Absolutely.
Everything's okay. Everything is fine. No worries, folks. This is easy peasy. Sometimes I use the joke of hunky dory. I don't know what Dory would say about it when we call her that.
Right.
But going into that state of everything is all right, everything is fine. This is the wholesome thoughts that will help us come back into that state of coolness, our own room temperature, where we're comfortable and happy. So, guys, why don't we end this call now? I've had a blast here. I've had about as much joy as I can stand right now.
Sounds good to me.
Perfect.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you.
All right, Michael, I really am looking forward to seeing you come.
Looking forward to it as well.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys.
See you
Have a
soon.
good one.
Uh-huh.
You too, guys.